Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
So let's dive right in. Imagine you're, prepping for this huge meeting, right? And U.S. policy is like the main topic.
Yeah.
Feeling a little overwhelmed by just like the sheer volume of news out there.
Definitely.
We got you covered. We are diving deep today into President Trump's recent speech to Congress.
Okay.
This was delivered on March 4th, 2025.
All right.
And this is actually his fifth such address to Congress.
Fifth one. Wow.
Yeah. So we're going to break down the key takeaways and highlight what's really important, for you to know.
And we'll go beyond just, the summary of it. We'll look at what these things could actually mean, in the bigger picture.
Exactly. So right off the bat, he declares that a golden age of America is upon us, and he cites election results and public opinion shifts as proof.
That's interesting because that's tapping into this idea of nostalgia and that desire for economic prosperity and national strength.
Yeah.
It's a tactic that politicians often use to try to evoke those feelings and inspire hope for the future.
That's fascinating. And, he keeps using this phrase, swift and unrelenting action. It's like he's emphasizing a particular governing style.
Absolutely. And he immediately backs that up with the list of actions taken in his first 43 days.
Oh, wow.
Hiring freezes, regulatory freezes, withdrawing from international agreements, and reversing a whole bunch of Biden-era policies.
So he's not wasting any time.
Not at all. He's hitting the ground running.
And he also spends a lot of time, kind of calling out his opponents. He called Biden the worst president in American history.
Right.
And criticized Democrats for their lack of enthusiasm, at certain points.
Yeah, it's a classic strategy, solidifying your base while alienating your critics.
Yeah.
And it's something that's worked for him before.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got the overall vibe. Now let's dig into some specifics.
Okay, let's do it.
First up is the creation of DOGE.
DOGE?
Yeah, the Department of Government Efficiency.
Okay.
And guess who is heading it up?
I have no idea.
Elon Musk.
Wow. Now that's interesting. It raises questions about, what is the role of private individuals in government? And are there potential conflicts of interest there? Definitely something to watch.
Definitely. And they've already identified, what they're calling shocking examples of government waste. Everything from free housing for undocumented immigrants to funding research that he framed as making mice transgender.
Those claims are definitely attention-grabbing.
Yeah.
It's crucial to look closely at the data behind those claims and consider if there's any bias in how that information is being presented.
For sure. Next, we've got the Gold Card, a $5 million path to U.S. citizenship.
$5 million.
Yeah, for what Trump calls job-creating people from all over the world.
So this is a great example of what can seem like contradictory policies at times.
Right.
It seemingly clashes with his past stances on immigration, which have been, let's say, stricter.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, what are the motivations behind it, and what could those economic and social consequences be?
Yeah, exactly. Then there's this whole concept of reciprocal tariffs, his plan to match other countries' tariffs dollar for dollar.
Right. This is what's known as a protectionist approach, where it aims to shield domestic industries from foreign competition, but it could have huge ripple effects on the global economy.
Yeah.
Potentially even leading to trade wars.
Yeah.
And, making things more expensive for everyone.
Right. And he's also really pushing for reviving American industry.
Okay.
He highlights announcements from companies like Honda and Taiwan Semiconductor about building plants in the U.S.
It's likely a result of multiple factors, though.
Oh, okay.
Including trends in the global economy and those companies' own strategies.
Right.
We can't just assume it's a direct result of, his policies.
Okay, that makes sense. And then we get into some more controversial territory.
Yeah.
He advocates for reclaiming the Panama Canal, banning transgender women from women's sports, and making English the official language of the U.S.
Yeah, these proposals could have major legal and social implications.
Oh, for sure.
It's important to consider all the different perspectives and potential outcomes before, forming a hard opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. He also calls for a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer, and criminalizing gender-affirming care for minors.
These stances are sure to spark intense debate and require a nuanced understanding of all the complexities involved.
Yeah, definitely. We've covered a lot of ground already, but this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I know, right? There's still a lot more to unpack in this speech.
So much more. Oh, one thing that really struck me was just how much information he, throws out there.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to overwhelm you with all these, facts and figures and anecdotes.
Right.
It can be a tactic to make it really hard to fact check everything or even just process it all,
Right.
And we've seen him use this before.
Yeah, okay, so let's try to sift through some of this and see what we can learn.
Yeah.
One theme that really jumps out is his focus on economic nationalism.
Right. He talks about bringing back manufacturing jobs, boosting American industries, and using tariffs, like we talked about, to protect businesses here at home.
Yeah, this America First approach seems to be a core part of his political philosophy.
And it clearly resonates with people who feel like globalization has left them behind.
But it also makes you worry about trade wars, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What that could mean for the global economy.
Yeah, and we're already seeing pushback from other countries who feel threatened by these protectionist policies.
Okay, then he spends a good chunk of time talking about immigration and border security.
Right.
He paints this picture of a country overrun by criminals and terrorists and promises to crack down hard.
Yeah, this kind of rhetoric really plays into anxieties about national security and cultural identity.
Yeah.
And it's been a powerful way to mobilize his base.
But it's important to remember that the reality of immigration is a lot more complicated than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Many immigrants come to the U.S. looking for a better life, and they contribute a lot to our economy and society.
Okay. And he also makes some pretty big claims about what he's achieved while in office. He cites record low unemployment and historic economic growth.
Right. It's important to look closely at those claims and consider other factors that might be at play, like global economic trends
Yeah.
or policies from previous administrations.
Then there are the social issues, where he takes a very conservative stance.
Yes, he rails against what he calls transgender ideology, criticizes wokeness, and advocates for traditional family values.
These are such hot button issues that are
Yeah.
dividing the country, and they really reflect these cultural clashes that are shaping American politics today.
Exactly.
So what does all this mean for the average person?
It means we're living in a time of really intense political division,
Right.
where people can't even agree on basic facts and emotions run really high.
It sounds like it's more important than ever to think critically about the information we're getting.
I completely agree. We have to be willing to look at things from different angles and have respectful conversations even when we disagree.
And we can't forget that, we all have a voice.
That's right. Democracy depends on participation.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to each of us to make our voices heard, whether that's through voting, volunteering, or just staying informed about the issues.
Now that we've examined the key themes and some of the most thought-provoking elements of Trump's speech, let's kind of take a step back. What's the bigger takeaway here?
What I find really fascinating is how this speech acts like a snapshot of this particular moment in American politics.
What do you mean by that?
It shows a surge in populist sentiment, this deep distrust of institutions, and this yearning for what some people see as a simpler, better time in America.
It also highlights how effectively Trump uses storytelling to connect with his audience.
No, he's a master at using vivid language to create these powerful images. Whether he's talking about American workers struggling or the perceived threat of undocumented immigrants, he knows how to paint a picture with his words.
But we have to remember that these stories are often presented from a specific viewpoint,
Right.
and they might not show the whole picture.
Exactly. That's where critical thinking comes in,
Right.
We need to analyze those narratives, look at the evidence, and consider different perspectives.
So bringing it back to you, the listener, Trump claims this is just the start of America's golden age. Based on what we've heard tonight, what do you think the next 4 years might look like?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him defy expectations before, so it's tough to say for sure.
What are you most curious to learn more about?
I'm particularly interested in the potential long-term impacts of his economic policies
Okay.
and his approach to foreign relations.
Why those areas?
Well, because that's where I think his decisions could have ripple effects that we feel for years to come.
Right.
It's not just about the immediate impact,
I see your point. I'm really intrigued by the cultural shifts he's trying to bring about.
Yeah.
How will his rhetoric and his policies affect these ongoing debates about identity values and what it means to be American?
Those are questions we'll be wrestling with for a long time.
Okay, so we've analyzed the major themes and some really striking moments from Trump's speech.
Right.
But now I want to touch on something else that caught my attention.
Okay.
He repeatedly uses the word truth throughout this speech.
That's interesting. You're right.
Yeah.
He does. And it seems deliberate.
Exactly. What do you think he's trying to achieve by emphasizing truth so much?
Well, it's a powerful rhetorical technique. By claiming to be the sole possessor of truth, he implicitly positions anyone who disagrees with him as being misled or dishonest. It's a way to shut down dissent and solidify his base.
So it's not just about conveying information,
No.
but also about shaping how people perceive reality.
Precisely. It's about controlling the narrative.
And this ties back to what we were discussing earlier about the importance of critical thinking.
Right.
In a world where information is constantly being spun and manipulated,
Yeah.
we need to be extra vigilant about questioning what we hear and see.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
We can't just passively consume information.
Yeah.
We need to actively engage with it, analyze it, and form our own conclusions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Trump's speech to Congress,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
I'd say it's this. We're living in a complex and ever-changing world,
Yeah.
and understanding the forces that shape it requires us to be informed, engaged, and above all, critical thinkers. That means questioning assumptions, seeking out diverse perspectives, and never taking anything at face value.
Well said. That about wraps up our deep dive into Trump's speech to Congress. I hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit challenging.
Remember, keep those thinking caps on and stay curious.
Until next time, happy deep diving.